And I want to bring in now from LA, Israel's former IDF spokesperson. We haven't spoken to him for quite some time, and that is Jonathan Conricus. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. First of all, why are you in LA, Jonathan?
Yes, good morning, Laura. Good to see you and good to be back on your show. I am here speaking on behalf of the IDF and Israel to various communities in LA, and I'm going to make my way over to Texas and then to New York and then back home.
Okay, wonderful. And hopefully we see you in Australia sometime soon, Jonathan. But, you know,
yes,
I just saw Barack Obama there. We've seen Israel not be a huge feature of this campaign. But what is Israel hoping happens on November 5? Is a Trump presidency better than a Harris presidency, in your view?
Yeah, what I think is important is the policies of both administrations. And what I will be focusing on and what I've been listening for is what are the incoming administrations, whether it's a Harris or a Trump one, what are they going to do about Iran? And what is the American policy going to be regarding Iran? What I think is important for an American policy, and when I see it from an Israeli perspective, it is to support Israel in fighting Iran. And I think we are at the cusp of major regional movement and events that I think will reshape the Middle East. And it is a very critical time for America, the most powerful and important country in the world, and Israel's most important ally, to stand beside Israel and to be strong against Iran and actually take the opportunity here that's going to avail itself of actually unseating the Iranian evil regime.
Jonathan, we heard the head of the IDF say in the last couple of hours as well that he expects the fight with Hezbollah to come to a sharp conclusion. What does that mean?
I think what that means is that that is what he's offering, and that is what the IDF is seeking to make possible for the political echelon in Israel to establish through diplomatic negotiations. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There are American envoys, the French, and a few others are quite active now in Lebanon. And I think that there is an opportunity to actually settle the situation, to bring about something close to Resolution 1701, but upgraded with additional capacity for Israel to verify that indeed we won't have Hezbollah fighters on the northern border again, close to Israeli civilians, as happened over the last years under the blind eye of UN peacekeepers and the Lebanese armed forces. And I think that what Israel is doing is trying to bring this about. The question will be, will Tehran allow it to happen? And will Hezbollah, in its current splintered situation, actually take the opportunity and consolidate its losses and actually go for some kind of a diplomatic deal? Or will the fighting continue?
Well, that's a good question, Jonathan, because you have wiped out Yahya Sinwar, Hezbollah leaders, and, you know, the likely successors as well. But what Israel hasn't done is wiped out an ideology. So how do you possibly win? What does a win look like?
You're very right, Laura. And Israel hasn't, and I don't think that Israel ever can. And I don't think that any other country, for that matter, can wipe out extremist ideology, which calls for genocide of Jews and the extermination of the state of Israel. The only thing that we can do is to fight, defend ourselves, and hopefully be strong enough in order to make diplomatic deals that safeguard our safety and allow us to live in our ancestral homeland. Now, what really needs, I think, to happen, and what would be a good outcome for Israel and a good outcome for Lebanon, would be that the different parties in Lebanon, the Sunnis, the Christians, and the Druze, come together, and that is a very big ask in a splintered society as the Lebanese one, and seize the opportunity here where they see Hezbollah weakened and actually step in and say, we now want to reclaim sovereignty. We want to reclaim control over Lebanon. We don't want decisions for the future of Lebanon to be made in Tehran. We want them to be made diplomatically and democratically in Beirut. I doubt if they'll have the ability to do so because Hezbollah is very powerful still and organized, and Iran continues to support it. Sure. But I think that what we're going to see in the coming days and weeks will be a continued weakening of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that will create a tremendous dilemma for Hezbollah and for other parties in Lebanon. So I remain hopeful.
Well, Hamas doesn't say who the new leader will be to replace Yahya Sinwar. I don't know whether there is a new leader. If there is, they're not telling, they're not willing to publicly name that person just yet. What does that mean for any negotiation? Did Israel give up negotiating with Hamas anyway, even through proxies a long time ago? And what does the future then of Gaza look like? Who runs the joint?
Yeah, so what Hamas has done since Yahya Sinwar was eliminated by Israeli soldiers, they've appointed an interim political leader, Khaled Mashal. He's been around the block. He's an old terrorist who has been living life at large in six-star hotels in Doha, Qatar. He's been doing that for many years and enjoying it and getting rich of it. He has an estimated personal wealth of about $4 billion, which is a nice sum for a terrorist of Palestinian background. And he is currently the interim leader. He is in Qatar, which is a strategic non-ally partner of NATO and a beneficiary of American support in the Middle East, with a major US base and major US assurances for its existence. And what I think would be a great opportunity now would be to apply pressure on the Qatari hosts and tell them, listen, the game's up. If you want the fighting to end, and if you want the suffering, and there is indeed suffering in Gaza, I acknowledge that. If you want the suffering for the Palestinians to end, you have the power to do so. You force Hamas, either they give up the hostages, surrender, and end the war, or we extradite Khaled Mashal to the US. He is wanted for the killing of Americans. He is wanted for international terrorism. He is an internationally designated terrorist. And those are the two options that I think he should have.
Jonathan, always good to talk to you. Welcome back to AIM Agenda. It's been too long. We'll see you soon.
We will. Thank you, Laura.